Hello, and welcome to From First Kiss to Wedded Bliss. I'm your host, Marcy Sullivan, Christian marriage coach, speaker, and author. Here we explore biblical wisdom and practical tools to help you build a strong, joyful, Christ-centered marriage. So let's dive in. Hi, and welcome back to From First Kiss to Wedded Bliss. I'm your host, Marcy Sullivan. Today I have joining us my counseling pastor, Steve Anderson. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, Marcy. Thanks for having me. So
glad you could join me. Would you like to tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a church-type home, got saved when I was 6, pretty much kept my nose clean my whole life. Good, boring life. I spent time in Christian broadcasting, went from Christian broadcasting to church media, from church media to pastoring. And most recently in pastoring, as I counseled people more and more, discovered I didn't know what in the world I was talking about. So I got my master's in Christian counseling. I know a little more than I did before I started that, but I have opportunity to counsel people now, everything from premarital, which you're very familiar with and you do, to all the way up through what's going on in marriages currently, to affair recovery and all sorts of different things like that.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of need out there.
Yes, there definitely is. And I guess a lot of times in church situations, people just generally go to their pastor to get help. And sometimes the pastor's not necessarily the best qualified person
not
to
equipped.
Do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Though they can give good biblical advice, marrying good, sound psychological and basic counseling principles to that sometimes makes a difference for people. It doesn't take the place. I probably do need to say we're ethically obligated when something goes beyond our ability to help and to cope to refer them up to a qualified mental health professional or something like that. So your pastor is probably competent to give good biblical wisdom, but when your need goes beyond what he has at his disposal to help you with, that's where Christian psychologists, psychiatrists, people like that come into play.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you think is the number one reason that people are getting divorced?
Well, simply from experience, my experience is that most people get divorced when they have given up trying. And most of the time they've given up trying because they lack, in a lot of instances, the ability to resolve conflict. And they hold on to it their entire married life, and it builds up like a great big bonfire. And then pretty soon the match gets struck and it's too big to put out. It's never too big to put out, but in their way of thinking, it's too big to put out. And so the only hope that they have, the only relief that they feel like they can find is to get away from all of the pain, to get away from all of that, as opposed to learning how to deal with it, how to settle it. And by the way, conflict resolution doesn't mean I win. It means I know how to make it work for both of us. And so I think that's probably a lot of when couples come to me, they are beyond the point where they should have dealt with that, could have, if they'd been given the skills, could have done that. And so we help to kind of walk through. But when that's not enough, or when they don't want to, or when they've just had enough, that's when most people start heading for the attorney.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is why I really want to offer people hope and the idea of not waiting till it's too late, but having that marriage maintenance, those things in between time to learn those skills that they need.
Agreed. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about what you and Chris do, because nobody, there's no book when we're born, nobody teaches us how to be parents when it comes time to be a parent. And nobody really, other than the marriages that we observe, our parents, other people, nobody really teaches us, though there are good books available, but it doesn't just come to us naturally or intuitively. Nobody teaches us or shows us those things. And so people don't resolve conflict because they don't know. People don't talk about their intimacy issues because they don't know how. And so what they really need is some guidance, and really need some help. And that's where ministries like yours and others come in to help people before it gets to be a problem.
Absolutely. I think preventative maintenance is key for
all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So talking about divorce, what does the Bible tell us about divorce? There's a lot of confusion there, and a lot of people don't want to take a stand. What are your views in regards to what the Bible says?
Well, when it comes to divorce, Marcy, I think we all have to try to look at it as God looks at it. And God doesn't just look at it as a terrible thing, though it is. God doesn't just look at it like it's sin, though it is under certain circumstances, and we can talk about that. God doesn't look at it just as a failure, although we would look at it and say our marriage failed. But God also looks at it through his heart of grace. So it's not the end of the world. God's not going to send me to hell for it. There is life after that. God can and will and does forgive for that and does restore and all of those things. So I think the biblical view is pretty clear. God says, I hate divorce. Don't get divorced. Jesus said when he was challenged, hey, Moses said we could divorce our wives if, and Jesus said, listen, it was true. Out of the hardness of your heart, you were given the opportunity, the legal, by Moses, the ability to do that for situations like adultery. But he very quickly comes back and says, but from the beginning, in other words, from the way we created it, that wasn't so. That was not supposed to be that way. So I think God's highest and best is always for forgiveness, for reconciliation, for commitment. But sometimes these things fail from our weakness, from our hard-heartedness, from our hurt and our pain. And I'd like to believe that as a couple is approaching divorce, that God is, I don't want to say he's yelling because that sounds like he's mad, but I think he's pleading with people, don't do this. I can help you with this. You can grow from this. You can be better than this. And every divorcing couple, as believers, especially because they have the help of the Lord available to them, has the opportunity to not do that. And we would hope they don't do that. But here's the truth. Getting divorced doesn't make you a bad person. Getting divorced isn't going to send you to hell. And we serve a gracious God who will help to restore and redeem and continue to bless someone in their marriage, even if they walk through that unfortunate door.
Yes, God's grace.
Yeah.
I was thinking as you were talking about divorce, that a lot of people just feel that that's going to be an easy answer. Mm-hmm. They're going to end their pain, but they don't realize they're just trading pain.
Yeah.
In a lot of circumstances.
Well, and the other thing I think that they don't really realize or don't want to believe is that, especially if you have children, whether they're little or whether they're adults, divorce takes a terrible toll on our children. Mm-hmm. I was counseling someone today and asking, how are your children handling this? And, I think fine, they're adults, they get it and whatever else, only to find out later they're not doing okay. None of us can do that. Divorce is, as much as anything, a loss. Mm-hmm. It's not just a loss of a marriage, it's a loss of a future. It's a loss of a family the way we always thought it would be. Right. It's the loss of the ability to always spend time together as a family and all those different things. And so there's a lot of damage that happens, not just between the hearts of the married couple, but to their families, their friends, everybody. It's a destructive sort of thing. And that's why God doesn't like it, mm-hmm. for our sake.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, the Bible tells us that iron sharpens iron, and so mm-hmm. one man sharpens another. I heard one lady talk when she was asked about that person is 80% what you want them to be, but they're 20% they're not. And so that's okay to go looking around for something else.
Oh my.
Right? That's, yeah. And she said that when you're doing something like that, you're basically opting out of the work that God wants to do in you.
That's it. Yeah, he brings us together for a purpose. He brings us together with people who are flawed, who don't have everything. Mm-hmm. But more than likely, if we would be aware of it, if we'd make ourselves aware of it, we have what they need and are expected to put that in them so they can be complete and whole, and they for us. And that's what a lot of people simply look at it as, what do you got for me? What have you done for me? You're not meeting my needs. I'm looking for somebody. And then even then, things like midlife mm-hmm. really can throw a monkey wrench in. So you got married young and everything was really great, but you never really had a chance to go out and have fun, and you've been married and then you had kids, and now all of a sudden it's midlife time. Mm-hmm. And I'm realizing that I'm not young anymore, that there's not as much time ahead of me as there is behind me. And suddenly I feel like I need to try to grab for what it is that I never got because I got married so early, or even because I got married at all, or some people think to the wrong person. And so they go out looking for that. And that's where a lot of affairs start. And that's why a lot of people get in touch with their old high school sweethearts on Facebook, God forbid, and things like that. So I think there are a lot of different things where people just need to recognize and understand that we are broken people who come together to walk through life together, to hopefully fill in each other's gaps, and not just I help you grow, you help me grow, but rather we grow together and as we become one. And a lot of people just don't get that.
Right. Yeah. That is important.
Yeah.
I like that. Something else you made me think of in regards to the relationship and filling in gaps. Times we're looking to each other to meet needs that neither one of us could fill in each other. Right. So that's where we like to point people to God first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. He's the need meter. Mm-hmm. He does it through us sometimes, gives us gifts and abilities and skills and whatever so that we can invest them in other people. That's really part of his plan. But no, you're right. There are certain things that only God can give you. And there are a lot of people who insist on looking for it in somebody else rather than him. And we do it to our peril. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, we do it in relationships. We do it in other ways of addictions and things that are trying to meet those needs that only God can fill. Those broken cisterns the Bible talks about that do not hold water, right?
It's exactly right. And I think the other thing is we are also self-centered. It's the way we're made. We're all trying to take care of me. I need my needs met. She's not meeting my needs. I need my needs met. He's not meeting my needs. When what we need to be saying is we need to be discovering, if we're not smart enough to already know just by watching and being with somebody, asking for what does this person need from me rather than my waiting for them to figure out what I need from them. So there's this proactive part that every married partner ought to be doing, and we're not often, or that's where that's where the rule book or the instruction book didn't come in. We need to be looking for opportunities to invest in the other people rather than waiting for them to invest in us.
That's good. Yeah. And in regards to knowing what somebody else wants, I know women are guilty of this so often that they should just know what I want.
Yeah.
But I've come across a tool that I think is very helpful. However, it really requires humility on the part of both partners. And don't ask the question if you don't want to hear the answer.
That's the truth.
The question, it's basically a feedback. Like I would ask my husband, Chris, on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing as a wife? And if he has anything less than a 10, and numbers kind of take the emotion out of it. But if he has anything less than a 10, then my follow-up should be, what can I do to get that number up?
That's good.
And that's so practical and so realistic. A lot of times we're not humble enough to receive that feedback. So, and just one thing, don't give me a whole list, just one thing I can do to make that number go up.
Yeah. And what I like about that is, and I've told this to my daughter, my adult daughter, since she was a teenager, and I've tried to teach her about men. And one of the things I told her is that, sweetheart, men are stupid. I mean, from the Steve Anderson 101 Truths About Men. Men are stupid. We don't get certain things, and we're not smart enough to ask questions, just like we don't like to ask for directions down the road. And so we don't ask, and so we can't meet the need because I need more time with you. Okay. What kind of time? What could we do to make that better? What are some ways we can do that? And investigating what the need is on a larger scale, or maybe more in depth, rather than just saying, well, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I just don't know how I'm going to do that kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah. And we're stupid. So we do need to learn to ask.
Yes, that is good. Yeah. We need to be clear in our communication. What do I need? Be direct, like I said earlier, right?
But also then too, and I think this is where we have to be courageous. We ought to have a desire, each and every one of us, we ought to have a desire to know what it is that could make us a better spouse, that could make us a better parent, that could make us a better Christ follower, or whatever, and to have the guts to ask the question. Shelley and I were really naive when we got married. We thought, wouldn't it be wonderful? Here's this wonderful relationship, so in love, and we're finding things out about each other. And, we ought to just, let's do this. Anytime I see you looking off into the distance and I know your brain's churning, I'm going to ask, what are you thinking about? And you tell me honestly, whatever it is. That's where I learned the phrase you used earlier, which is don't ask questions that you may not want the answers to. And so I asked Shelley one time, she dated a guy before me and a nice guy, Christian guy, good man. But she chose me. I chose her. I got the girl. So one day in my mild arrogance, I asked Shelley, I said, well, Shelley, what are you thinking about over there? And she said, and Shelley will just tell you what she said. Well, I was just wondering, I wonder what it would have been like if I'd married someone else. Now, she's not really wondering. She wasn't really, although that's not a thing that you want to tell your newlywed husband, but I thought, oh my gosh, that's one of the, so another time in my arrogance, I asked her, so this other guy that she had dated, I said, so I got the girl, but tell me, what did Gary have that I don't have?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And she looked at me and without much hesitation, Marcy, she said, compassion. And I said, what? I don't have compassion. She said, well, it's not that you don't have any, but she said, he just really had a lot of compassion. That so bothered me that she felt that he had it and I didn't, that I decided, you know what, Steve, why don't you just pray and ask God to help you with that and give that to you so you can have what you don't have. And I will tell you, Marcy, like praying for patience, people should never pray for compassion unless they're really willing to pay the price, because God will bring you through a lot of sorrow and suffering in order to teach you compassion. Because how can I relate to your suffering if I haven't suffered that? How can I have compassion if I don't understand the depth of your pain? And so that was one of the things that actually in the long term turned out, how could I sit here and counsel people if I have no compassion? So there are some things that we need to ask boldly, being willing to hear the answer that may not be one that we like or that's pleasant, but gives us an opportunity to grow. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, those were some pretty scary questions.
Yeah. I don't ask a lot of questions anymore.
No. Well, I was thinking when I ask my husband or my son, oh, they're not thinking about anything.
Yeah.
And they really mean it. From what I understand, it's true.
Yep, it is exactly right. It's exactly right. So in those moments where you do catch something, hang on to that. It's a precious commodity.
And we need to be safe spaces for each other, don't we?
We do.
Because when someone is critical or they're constantly shutting you down, you can't relate. Yeah.
Or when and I would say this, because I honestly, one of the things that I learned is, not that you shouldn't ask questions, not that you shouldn't talk about stuff like that, but we need to learn to ask questions or enter into discussions with a great intentionality toward that discussion and that disclosure being safe. Because I could say, if Shelley said, hey, well, what are you thinking about right now? And let's say in my midlife, which I'm long past, but let's say I'm in midlife and I'm just thinking, what I missed out on. I don't know. I was thinking how fun it would have been if I had some long-legged blonde that I could run off with, or as I've heard some women say, that I could just jump on the back of some guy on a motorcycle and ride into the sunset. These are married people. And okay, I get what you're saying. There's a longing in your heart for excitement with the motorcycle guy, or there's a longing in your heart to feel young because you got a blonde, on your side. But really what we do when we answer those, albeit honestly, is we create a very unsafe, insecure environment for our spouse. So before we open our yaps, we have to really think about what will the effect be on the woman that I love and who loves me if I just say words that are not considered and not weighted before I say them. So that's important too. It's an important part of conversation. It's not that we withhold, but that whatever we give, we shroud in safety for the sake of the other person.
I like that. Yeah. Shroud in safety.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, do you feel that one person can make a difference in the marriage?
Wow. That's a really good question. And I'm going to say, let me put it to you this way. I used to say It takes two people to make a great marriage. It takes one person to make a lousy one. Because there are ways in which one person may just totally overstep or totally understep or whatever. So one person can ruin a marriage. One person can make a difference in a marriage in a couple of different ways. Number one, through perseverance, not giving up, continuing to work at it. Number two, walking in grace all the time. And honestly, in that context, Marcy, I think grace has more to do with forgiveness than it does just giving something that something they don't deserve. Although that's a part of it too. I may not always deserve my wife's love, may not have earned it, but by her grace, in spite of my deficiencies, my whatever, she continues to give it. So grace is an important part. So walking in grace, walking in forgiveness, and then certainly in prayer. Praying over things, and honestly, and this is for people who've been praying for their spouse for a long time, prayer is not always a quick answer. God works in the natural. He works in our world's timeline. He doesn't just jump in and suddenly, when he does, it's a miracle. But most of the time he doesn't. And so he will use circumstances. He will use experiences. He will do all sorts of things to get people to the place we've prayed them to be. But he doesn't always, in fact, usually doesn't rush the process and make it happen. And we want it now. Or if we don't see results fast enough, we pull the ripcord and bail out, if I can mix metaphors. And so I think a person can, but I think it takes here's what it comes down to. It comes out to living the commitment that you made. For better or for worse, you alone, you only will I give my life to, and in sickness and health, good times, bad times, sin, forgiveness, all of those different things, with the idea that one day, if I remain faithful to my marriage vows, if I remain faithful to the Lord and allow him to work in me and pray that he will work in my spouse, and then I wait for it, do all I can, then God comes through, does what only he can do. And so in that regard, sure, one person can make a huge difference, but not without great cost. We just have to be willing to pay the price.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people just get tired and they pull the ripcord. But I believe God gives us grace, God gives us strength, God helps us, walks through it with us. And I think with the Lord's help, honestly, we can do anything, all things, through Christ.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it's so important in Christian marriages that we look at the long-term view, because the first 5 years, I usually say, is that if you can make it past the first 5 years, then you're pretty good. You've got an edge. And if both people are going to church regularly together, that lowers divorce rates considerably. Add on to that, if you're praying together, there's so many things that we can do. And of course, like I said, going to church together, praying together, that does involve the other person being willing to do it. But just that whole long-term view of what are we aiming for? I want a future where we don't have separate Christmases and separate Thanksgivings, and our kids are broken up in different homes, and I have to see you with another woman raising my children and all of this. But ultimately, even beyond all of those things, are we bringing God glory in this marriage? And that is what other people are going to look to. I know Pastor was just talking about give an answer for the hope that we have. And that can be displayed in your marriage.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
When other people are falling apart from different circumstances that come into your life, but yet you choose to stay together and to work things out and to love when it's hard. It's a tremendous testimony to God's grace in your life.
And the other thing that it is it's a really wonderful opportunity to teach our children through our growth periods, pain and everything included, how God got us through, how we got from here to there. My daughter, who's in her 40s now, I learned early on from her husband that apparently my wife and I are quite the unattainable example to our son-in-law. And he even told me one time, he said, I am so sick of hearing how wonderful you guys are. She will, Julia will always say, well, my parents never did this, or in the house I grew up in, we, and there's a part of me that is just so grateful to hear that she sees those things and she gets those things. But I also understand that people like my son-in-law didn't grow up in that. And to him, it's almost an irritation, something he doesn't feel he can live up to. So I take comfort in it is something that my daughter, and I'd like to think my son, because they both have good marriages, but that they saw something, they learned something through our example, but also the times we were honest with them and told them what had happened and how we walked through that so that they could learn too. In fact, one other really quick thing, I've walked a number of people last year, 6 different couples through affair recovery. It's a terrible, it's hard thing. But one of the things that we tell couples once they've come to a place of healing in their relationship is that, especially if they have adult children, that at some point they need to sit down and tell their children about that, not because they owe them or that they feel guilty or that they're accountable to them, but it's this wonderful opportunity to say, look, here's where we did really great. And then here's where this went off the rails. And here's how we got back in line. Here's what God did for us. And here's how we did it. And now now that you know, here's something you can do to not end up like we did. And we beg you to pay attention to that kind of a thing. And so our mistakes, our failures, our struggles, big or small in our marriage, are such wonderful opportunities to teach our children if we will be vulnerable enough and if we will tell that to them, not so that they realize how flawed we are or what bad mistakes we've made, but so that they can learn at least a little bit from our example on how to avoid the hard times that we walk through.
That's good. And I think it's important that they know that we're not perfect.
Yeah.
Because that's, like you're saying, unattainable. Let's turn our thoughts to some advice for newlyweds or people who are considering getting married. Mm-hmm. What kind of advice do you give them when they're thinking about, is this the person I should marry?
Yeah, that's good. I'm a firm believer. I know you and Chris do SYMBIS, saving your marriage before it starts. I do that. Some of our pastors do that. It's been around for a while. It's a great program. And for those who aren't familiar with it, it's an inventory that you take online, and it comes back and shows you where you have similarities, where you have potential struggle points, some unanswered or unresolved things in your personal life as well as a couple, suggests ways that you can work on some things before you get married, and those kinds of things. So I guess in a nutshell, what I would recommend is that people really take time. In SYMBIS is 4 or 5 weeks, 4 or 5 sessions. It can be 6. Take more than that if you need to, but work through the process of truly being prepared. When Shelley and I were getting married, our premarital counseling consisted of sitting for about a half hour with our pastor, who was going to be doing the one who was going to be marrying us. And he just asked us a couple questions, Have you decided who's going to pay the bills? Have you thought about what you're going to do for birth control? I mean, I'm serious. It's like, wait, what? But very little other than a few questions that I wasn't even comfortable answering. But something like SYMBIS, something that will help you work through personality issues, family dynamic, previous family dynamics, financial issues, experiences, all those kinds of things. It's really, really important and helps us to get to know the person that we're marrying. And honestly, I've only had it happen one time where I walked a couple through it. And at the end, I said, you know what? I strongly advise that you not marry each other. Mm-hmm. And that's painful and hard to do because you can fall in love with anybody.
Right.
But that doesn't make them marriage material.
Yes.
And if they're not, don't make your life miserable. It's happy now.
Yeah.
You're in love now. And later, you're not going to be in love and it's going to be miserable. So I would really encourage people who are on the cusp to go to some marriage seminars, to go to a marriage enrichment place, to seek some marriage mentors who would be willing, even if you're not married, to walk you through some of those things. But we learn best from others. And so I really encourage that.
Well, I love SYMBIS. And I think, they say love is blind. Sympus removes the blindfold.
It sure does.
It helps you see things really clearly in black and white on the page.
Yeah.
Chris and I didn't have the benefit of the assessment, but we had read the book when it first came out before we married. And I feel like it really set us up in a great way for what our expectations were for each other and from each other and where we were similar and all of that. So I recommend that as well. Now moving on in marriage, couple's been married a while, has a few kids. There's just life is busy, and now they feel more like roommates than anything else. Yeah. What do you tell somebody like that?
Well, and that's a difficult thing for everybody. That's something that, that Shelley and I have walked through. When you're first married, you're investing all your time and energy in one another, and it's wonderful. It's heady. It's really, really great. And then children come along and distract you from each other. And then all the things that go along with building a family, expenses, and all of those things come along, and they change our relationship. And it isn't even that we don't care anymore, or that we are distracted and we should pay better attention. It's that it changes everything. It changes the dynamics of our life. We can't always have control over what happens in our life, but we always have control over how we respond to it. So my life might be busy, but I can respond by carving out time. My life might be complicated, but I can respond by setting safe boundaries so that my relationship can stay strong. And by the way, as you know, they've shifted now from talking about boundaries. Now they just call them limits. I don't have boundaries as to how much time I'll spend at the office. I have limits. I don't have boundaries about, whatever. I have limits, because limit is a much stronger term. Boundaries suggest you might be allowed to step over the fence once in a while, Boundary simply is this is a serious thing. Don't cross this. And it's always up to us to set healthy boundaries, but are at limits. It's also up to us to keep them. And I think what happens is with children and all the things, the cares of life, soccer games, and all that stuff, what happens is we don't have boundaries anymore. It's all spread out all over. So I would say at the point where you wake up and you realize my boundaries are gone, my limits are off, and I'm paying the price for it, that together you talk about and work toward, okay, what do we need to do to put safe limits, safe boundaries around our relationship again so that it can thrive? Not so I can blame Shelley for what's not happening, or I can feel badly but rather, look, we're walking this walk together. What do we got to do? Yes. What do we got to do to keep people off our grass? What do we got to do to keep people from robbing our time? And what do I have to do to keep from giving away my time? And it takes a lot of intentionality.
Yes, that was the word I was thinking the whole time. And that's what we constantly push, is being intentional about your relationship, because things don't just happen. They generally get worse on their own, not better. Yep. That you're either drifting or you're moving toward each other. There's no stagnant. So be intentional. I like that. Now, for someone in my age and stage, we're moving towards empty nesting. And I know a lot of people at this point, if they haven't done the intentional work ahead of time, they may not really even know each other very well anymore. What do you tell people like that?
So I would say it's not a problem. It's an opportunity to begin to do marriage 2.0. Okay, we've been through this. We've had some successes. We've had some failures. Our relationship changed because of all of these externals, and now many of the externals, i.e., children, are out of the way, and we now have more time. We now have more opportunity to do things together. We have more time to become reacquainted with one another. And so a lot of people get to that point and they look at it and they say, well, we got nothing. We just gave it all to our kids, and now here we are, we got nothing. You have everything you've always had. All you need now is a plan. Okay, here's this great thing. Do we want to travel more? Will we spend more time in church? Is there something we can do serving together somewhere? And you talk about it, and I don't want to say negotiate it. You dream together, and you create the 2.0 version of your marriage. It doesn't have to look like what it was.
Right.
And you don't have to feel like that was lost.
Mm-hmm.
What you get to feel like is we have this wonderful new opportunity to have something we've never had before,
Right.
and then go together and create it.
Yes, absolutely. For my aunt and uncle, their thing was biking. They would bicycle different trails, the rails to trails that they have all over the country, railroads they've changed into bike paths. So they made a goal of going to all these different places and doing their biking. For Chris and I, Toastmasters has been a fun thing that we've been doing together. And of course, our marriage ministry is another part of that. Book writing.
Yeah, but so here's the thing. In all of that I've heard you talk about, these are shared moments.
Yes.
These are shared opportunities, not, well, now I'm going to go off and join a book club. Well, great, I'm going to go golf. No, you work towards shared experiences together. Those are what build us and grow us together. And so those are great examples.
Excellent. What's something that you and Shelley have that you share together?
Shelley and I, it's interesting. We've been married 46 years. It's hard to believe. Yeah. It's hard to believe. And we've been through good times and bad times. Just because I'm a pastor doesn't mean that my life has been blissful and that, my marriage has always been the best.
Together?
Oh,
okay.
No. In fact, in another program, no, I wouldn't tell you some of the hard things. What Shelley and I, here's what's happened for Shelley and I. We were talking about it this morning. Funny you would ask. We've both gone through our periods of time where we dealt with the issue of issues, each of us in our own way, feeling inadequate, feeling unappreciated. I don't know about unloved, but unimportant, too busy for second or third on the totem pole, things like that. And we've tried to learn and grow from those, but the one thing that we have on an ongoing basis, as opposed to things that we do, I mean, I could tell you about those things, but we're boring. But more than anything, what we've discovered is that what we continue to share is grace. And that the grace that we've given to one another, in spite of our shortcomings and our mistakes and our whatever, the grace that we've given to each other is the same grace that has brought us to a place where 46 years later, we still like each other. Mm-hmm. We still like being together, doing things together. Our big deal of the day is breakfast. Okay. We have breakfast like, no, you can't go to a restaurant and get the kind of breakfast that we have. And we take that time. It's about a good 2 hours in the morning before I take off for work. And so we've got some really, really great quality time, and we just spend time enjoying that time together, certainly eating, but also talking about things, and whatever. And so there again, time spent with one another. When you get older, sorry, you're headed that way. You may find it as we age and our physical, strength, stamina, the things that used to, hey, I got all this energy, I want to get out, let's go ride bikes. You don't always have that. Or you come to the place where you've torn some muscles that will never heal, or you just aren't what you used to be. And that's a whole other story for a marriage, because there comes that point in your life where you begin to recognize you're not going to be able to do the things you used to do. You're not going to have what you used to have. And you have to be able to give one another grace, stand with one another, help one another through that. Talk about growing together. Shelley just broke her leg a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I'm helping her get the boot off at night before she gets into bed. I'm helping her get up in the morning. I'm doing all these things and glad to do it. But it's an opportunity to invest in her life, and there are more and more of those as your body begins to fail you.
Right.
So things kind of change along the way, and what you find is what you can really enjoy together is time. Mm-hmm. It becomes more and more meaningful.
Right. Yeah. And like Ecclesiastes says, that two are better than one. If one falls, the other one is there to help them up.
That's exactly right.
All right. Well, you kind of talked about some of the intentional things you do. As far as you spend time regularly in the mornings. Mm-hmm. What is some of the best marriage advice that you've ever heard?
I think the best marriage advice that I have ever heard is some of the hardest to put into practice. We all have different expectations. We all have things that we're not comfortable with. We all have things that we wish the other one knew or could do or whatever. And I find that sometimes we complicate the idea of growing together spiritually. And there's been this thing on a lot of guys that I know, they have wives who say, I just want him to be the spiritual head of our house. I just want him to be the priest of our family. And I have to tell you, those are some of the most frightening words for a man to hear, because nobody taught us how to do that. We don't even know what you mean by that when you say that. Yes. So we conjure up these things, and we know we're not capable, competent. What in the world? And so a lot of guys just kind of freeze. When I think really the best advice I've heard is just grow together in these things. Wives, take the pressure off your husband of being something he doesn't even know what you mean. And just let him. Pastor Goss once told me, he said, you know what spiritual leadership is to me? And what? He said, a husband being a spiritual leader is, on Sunday morning, he gets up and says, I'm going to church, come with me. You're leading, you're literally going ahead, and your family's following. That's leadership. It's not creating a 5-point sermon every day or having all the spiritual answers or anything else. And so I think, and that's not lowering of expectations. That's simply walking together. Shelley's got great spiritual insight. I need to learn to listen to hers when she comes up. I don't need to say, hey, I'm the spiritual leader here. I'm the man of God. And I learn from her. She learns from me, and we walk together. So so I think some of the greatest advice, and I can't remember who told me, was just learn to grow spiritually together. Don't worry about who leads, who follows. Just grow together. If you're both moving in the same direction, if you're both taking part in it, you'll grow together.
No, that's excellent advice. I think you're right about putting so much pressure on a guy.
Yeah.
And women tend to see things differently spiritually anyway, because women are more relational. And so they may not see their husband doing the things that they would do, journaling and worship music and whatever else that they do. But that doesn't mean that he's not growing in his own way. And so that's really important, I think, to take that pressure off.
Yeah. And again, it's not something anybody teaches us. So we need to learn to just grow into it. Let God show us, let God lead us, and then just do it.
Absolutely. Last thing I'm going to ask you, is there any other intentional things that you do to keep the marriage strong?
Yes. This is huge.
Okay.
I read a book one time called Dying Well. It was written by a Jewish man, and it's a really, really great book. But toward the end, he sums it up by saying, the best way to die well is to live well. And his formula for living well is 4 sentences that you say and employ every day.
Okay.
Both of you, each of you. One is, forgive me. Marcy, I think forgiveness, the forgiveness side of grace, is probably one of the most important things to do. I mess up all the time. I'm a knucklehead. What I told my daughter, man, I'm stupid. I don't always get it. I don't always do things right. And so I need to seek forgiveness. And a lot of people, men and women, don't want to do that, because I have to acknowledge my shortcoming. I have to acknowledge mea culpa. Forgive me. We ask it, not let me tell you I'm sorry, but forgive me. The second one is, I forgive you. And forgiveness means I give up my right to get even with you. And it's something that I offer whether you deserve it or not, because guess what? None of us deserve it. Then number 3, I love you. Now, that seems like a kind of a given, because that's what we should tell people and whatever. But that's hard for some people to do. And it's hard for some people to do when they don't feel loving, or when they're angry, which is why forgiveness is such a big deal. How can you be loving toward the person you're resenting? So forgive me, I forgive you, I love you needs to be expressed every day. Think about what if the last word you heard somebody say as they walked out of the door and out of your life and then got smushed by a bus was, well, we'll talk about that later, or I'm not letting that go. but rather if the very last words you ever spoke to your spouse, the last time you saw them, every time you see them is, I love you. Mm-hmm. They would never have to wonder. Mm-hmm. I love you. And so forgive me. I forgive you. I love you. And here's a big one. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Because we've become so accustomed to feeling that we deserve everything. Mm-hmm. She ought to do that for me. He ought to tell me those things. That we lose our sense of gratitude. We do that with God. We just become this consumer of things. And by the way, that helps to deal with he's not giving me what I want. Mm-hmm. She's not meeting my needs. Thank you means you've met a need today. You've done something for me. Mm-hmm. And so thank you gives us an opportunity to express gratitude, to realize we have much to be thankful for, and to acknowledge gratitude to that person. Now you take any human being and you seek forgiveness, you give forgiveness, you express love, and you thank them. Mm-hmm. What in the world could go wrong in that relationship? Mm-hmm. So I think on an intentional basis, and this guy's thing was every day you ought to find a time and a place to use all 4 of those sentences every day, mm-hmm. not gratuitously, not to get something, not because you have to, but look for opportunities to do that. And what happens is that person becomes enriched in your mind and in your thoughts because you recognize all that you have in them and all that you get from them. Mm-hmm. And makes for a great marriage.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really a big part of being self-aware mm-hmm. in your relationship mm-hmm. too.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you, Steve Anderson, for joining me. Sometime. I enjoyed it so much, and you've got great wisdom. Thanks for joining me on From First Kiss to Wedded Bliss. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more resources and coaching to strengthen your marriage, visit marcysullivan.com. Until next time, keep Christ at the center and keep choosing love every day. Thanks for joining me on From First Kiss to Wedded Bliss. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more resources and coaching to strengthen your marriage, visit marcysullivan.com. Until next time, keep Christ at the center and keep choosing love every day.